Now's the time for a great deal on a new Honda. It's time to take an adventure with rugged capability and commanding style. Check out the Honda Ridgeline, Pilot, or CR-V. For a limited time, well-qualified buyers can get a 3.99% APR on a 2025 Pilot, a 1.99% APR on a 2025 Ridgeline, or a 2.99% APR on a 2025 CR-V.
See dealer for financing details.
Morning and afternoon, everybody. It's we kind of jumped on here before, and we're like, it's doom and gloom out there. It's disgusting. We're tired. Like it's just what I feel
tired.
Like
we're depressed.
it's like 2 days into the playoffs, and I'm already exhausted.
Yeah.
How we doing though? Doing good?
Yeah. No, doing good. Just yesterday was Easter, so I hope everyone had a happy Easter Sunday.
Had a beautiful day yesterday.
I still have an issue with like any sporting events happening on Easter Sunday. Like I get that I get that it's not like a worldwide holiday. I get that like not everybody will celebrate it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like it was hard for people to get to make the decision to not spend time with family and instead sit down and watch sports. Which I had the displeasure of having to do that.
Well,
not by choice.
We will certainly get into that.
But other than that, nope, good.
Yeah, good.
Anybody who watched WrestleMania last night, I'm sure, has their thoughts.
I know. I don't watch it. It was funny. Like I used to watch it when I was like 12, 13, 14, 15.
Same. Yes. Same.
Like I grew up like Friday Night SmackDown for some reason. I was like, yeah, like I'll get into it, right? Mm-hmm. And I was a big, and still am, like a big Randy Orton guy. I don't know why.
Last night.
Yeah, I don't know why. I was a big Randy Orton guy.
It was that era of like prime John Cena, Randy Orton, even The Undertaker had come back.
It'll never be the same.
I think Batista, like all those guys, and like now, and that's when
Vince McMahon
was still allowed.
I know now you got a bunch of clowns.
Which is crazy, but
yep. Yeah, good stuff. We got a lot to get to today as well. So I think the plan moving forward here is I think we'll just do once a week now going forward. Maybe until the draft.
Maybe like every Monday. Yeah,
every Monday. We'll get the we'll make sure as well too when the draft comes around. We'll be prepared for that one. So maybe like the couple of days prior to the draft, we'll get on for that one too. And the draft lottery's coming up in like 2 weeks, so that's exciting. I don't know if Flames fans are hoping for like the 0.1% chance they get a top 10 pick.
But even if it ends up in the top 10 anywhere, successful. No one can complain.
But I don't want to lose our pick next year, man. Like I just want to keep it. I want to make sure we have it, right?
That's fair, yeah.
Whatever, just lose it. It is what it is. Hey, we got to watch those Devils too. As well, in Florida in the first round. Lots to get into.
Which again doesn't start till tomorrow.
So we'll talk about. We're going to talk about the game that happened on Thursday. I know it's been a long time since then, but I still think we should bring it up. We'll talk about more or less. We'll just kind of talk about the rookies rather than the game itself.
Sure.
We got some exit interviews to look at as well. Primarily two is what I want to look at here, and then we'll also talk about kind of off-season, our thoughts on the off-season, and then we'll get into all the playoff action that's happened over the weekend. So, last game of the season obviously didn't mean anything at all, but the Flames still go out there. They rested a lot of guys. A lot of the rookies came out, and we had two rookies that had a scoring debut. So Zane Parekh and Sam Morton ended up scoring in their debut in the NHL. The Flames just absolutely cruised by the LA Kings. I don't know if it was LA not really trying, to be honest with you. It didn't feel like it didn't
Even
really
though they
feel
outshot the Flames.
They outshot them, but still it didn't feel all that competitive really.
Yeah.
But Still, you got Kadri, who just cements on what was a fantastic season for him. He had 34 goals. You get Morton, who ends up on the board. Kadri now 35 goals he had. We're going to be seeing his name pop up a lot. Hopefully next year is Zane Parekh. He finds a way to get on the board. Backlund made it 5-0 before. Taylor Ward, also a rookie making his debut for the LA Kings. He ended up finding the back of the net very late in the.
Hoping for a Vladar shutout. It looked good for the longest time.
It really did. Taylor Ward gets his first, so congrats to him as the Flames win it 5-1. The Flames collect their 41st win of the season, and by the way, they swept the season series, believe it or not, with the LA Kings.
Ooh.
Very odd. Odd.
Edmonton couldn't say that.
Edmonton could not. It's the absolute opposite because
the Battle of Alberta continues to haunt the Edmonton Oilers in more ways than one.
I feel like it haunts Calgary a little bit more. In that
Probably.
So really, to kind of take away from this game here, it was the rookies that kind of stole the show. It was Sam Morton, who goes back down to the AHL, getting ready for the playoffs for the Wranglers. We'll have some coverage on that a little bit too. And yeah, Zane finds a way to get on the board. I don't know if you saw the goal, but he got a tip in front, and then he just completely obliterated Blake Coleman by accident.
Yes.
And after the game, Zane was like, "It didn't hit me till like afterwards because I wanted to make sure Blake was okay first because I like completely ran him over by accident."
Right.
And so it was kind of funny in that sense, but the vibes going into that game, and I don't know if you saw right before, like you saw it was Kadri, Coronado, I think it was Dustin Wolf and Huberdeau, right? They were all just kind of standing as the guys were doing their rookie laps, and they were just like waving to them, and they were smiling and chuckling, and so it was still like it was really good to see them kind of be happy for them, and still like it's a year to end on a good note, and it was kind of nice that like as much as it sucks not making it to the postseason, it was nice that they only had one non-meaningful game to play for, right? Whereas a lot of teams were like 20 games left and they're like, we're out of it, we got nothing to play for here. Like they didn't really have, it was only one game here, but it gave them a chance for the rookies to make their debut here. So I was actually impressed with all the rookies. I thought Suniev looked dynamic. Zane looked like he was very comfortable where he fits in. I like Sam Morton off the rush a little bit too. And Brustevich here as well. Like it's going to set him up well for the AHL in the playoffs. And I thought it was a sensational performance by the rookies. I thought they came out and played really well. And overall, it was a really good performance to end the season. So I'm not sure if you had any sort of takeaways from Thursday.
Well, it's one of the few times that I actually could sit and watch like live because it was on ESPN, which was nice. I think overall, you couldn't ask for a better game in terms of seeing the young guys play. I think overall they came in as a collective group and, made it a point that they wanted to showcase themselves on the NHL stage. And look, again, regardless of, where the Flames were at that point in the standings, and obviously their season was going to come to an end one way or the other in that game, I think for them to finish the season on a high note, getting that 41st victory and seeing some of these young guys contributing, I think is great. I will say that Adam Klapka really finished the year super strong in terms of point production, scoring, got an assist, as mentioned, on the first Kadri goal.
And on that first line. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I think he definitely is a guy that we're going to see a lot more next year.
Yeah,
at a bottom six,
there.
Him playing on a bottom six role, I think, kind of works for him, though, just in terms of like his physical presence. But he could also then contribute point-wise. Now, to be fair, he did play on one of the top lines. So you kind of like wonder, is he more just because of who he's playing with, or can he actually contribute like that next year?
I think for Klapka, it's strange. I feel like he's one of those guys that you could slot him in anywhere in this lineup.
Okay.
If somebody gets injured, okay, you know what? We're going to have somebody to replace it. Klapka, boom, on the wing, right? And to end the year, like Klapka was on a bit of a heater there to end the year, being on that top line, right?
Yeah.
Not to mention not to mention him only being on a heater. The Flames to end the season, by the way, were 11-2-3 since the trade deadline. How wild is that? 11-2-3 to end the year, and you still don't get in.
And again, we go back to it, right? We go back to it was just the fact that St. Louis had just such an unbelievable stretch the last month and change. And it's one of those things that I would argue very much that if the Blues had even lost one or two more games, the Flames are in. Just because
that's
of
the thing.
but you can't. Can you get on the Flames? We could look back and we could look back at
You can
games that
nitpick, but you can nitpick
you
at
can
everybody.
nitpick, but what's the point in doing that, especially in a year where you weren't even supposed to be in this type of position in the first place?
Exactly.
So overall, like, I think you could definitely tell that the team was very loose playing this game because, again, there's nothing to play for except pride, right?
Got it.
But
Yeah.
but what's great for those young players is that it meant something to them because that's their NHL debut. And a bunch of them contributed on the score sheet, made impacts left and right, and ultimately guided the Flames to a win. And that's really all that matters at the end of the day for me. So
exactly.
overall, really liked what I saw from a lot of guys. I really, really like Vucevic. I really do. I think that
I like him too.
I think this kid's going to be really, really good down the stretch. Not down the stretch, more just like
Getting ready for camp
in the future. For sure. And that's the thing. Wanted to quickly go back to Klapka, by the way, Kyle.
Yes.
In the last 10 games he played, so from April 3rd in a game against Anaheim to the last game against LA, he finished with 6 points, 3 goals, and 3 assists in those 10 games.
I think he also had points against Colorado, if I'm not mistaken, too.
He had a goal and assist on March 31st against Colorado, but that is that 10 games? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, that shows you how much. So he actually ended up with 8 points, 4 goals, and 4 assists in his last 10 games.
Yeah, and that says something for a guy who primarily was on that fourth line, and then ultimately they decided that. And I don't know, really, like, I'd love to go back and if I had a question to ask Craig Conroy, or maybe even Huska, because he's the one that does the lineups. It's like, what sparked the interest in putting Klapka on that top line? Like, was it the fact that, are you looking for that big body presence more in front of the net to kind of crash the net? Because I think that's kind of what you want. He's very mobile. He's a big mobile forward, right? And he's a guy that you kind of want in front of the net. And he would be such a dick as a goaltender. Oh my God. And I think maybe that's kind of what they're thinking. Like, that's a suitable role for him almost. Even if he plays like, that's why you mentioned it too, where he more or less, like, he's more of a fourth liner there, but I don't know. I'm starting to think more and more going into next year. If you find the right kind of line that you put him with, he can be very effective when crashing the net, playing in front of the net there, like just being all around that type player there, and letting the guys play make around him, i.e., like the Huberdeaus and Kadri, who had 35 goals this year.
A hell of a year for Nazem Kadri, and
hell of a year.
If he had gotten hot a little bit sooner, he might have pushed for a 40-goal season, which I couldn't even tell you the last time the Flames had a 40-goal scorer on their roster. And, look, say what you want about the contract that he's on and where he's at in his career.
I don't even think that's bad.
I don't even think you're right. I don't even think it's really that bad of a thing. And I think overall, you're going to look back and say that Kadri really, really stepped up in many ways when they needed him to. But I want to, again, go back to something I said on Thursday from a tweet that I saw where if you're Craig Conroy, there's a lot of positives to take away from the season, but you can't go into next year thinking that the team you have now is the team that you can roll out with next year. You have to add, whether it's through, again, a young guy or two that you have in your system. But I think, I'm not saying that the Flames have to go into free agency and go crazy and spend a crap load of money, but I think certainly adding to this team via free agency, maybe through a trade, I think is necessary in order for this team to take that next step. Because I think now, Kyle, with the way this season went for the Flames and where the expectations are going to go, I think next year you have to expect this team to not only compete for a playoff spot, but I think to take it a step further and actually get back into the playoffs.
Right. If I can find the clip, he talks about making those kind of additions this offseason. And the one thing, I might struggle finding it, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. But the one thing that he mentioned in his exit interview was there is something to add, that he is looking to add this offseason. So that's something to look for. More specifically, aside from the obvious, him wanting to add like the centerman 21 to 25 right shot centerman, he said speed. was so critical. And he gave an example, and he's like, I know I'm going back here to like 2004, but when he made an example of when they had the skills competition for the Flames themselves had their own skill competition back in 2004. He said the biggest difference, what we felt going into that playoff run back in 2004, was during that skills competition, guys like Donovan and I'm blanking on some of the names here, like Jordan Leopold, right? The defenseman there. A lot of the guys on the team, what really stood out to him was the speed, right? And that's ultimately what helped this team in that playoff run. So he's like, not trying to correlate here, but it's something that we feel like in overtimes this year where, even off the rushes too, we felt like we were losing some of that edge here on some of the teams like a Colorado, for example, who's just, we watched them in game 1 on Saturday and they outsped Dallas like nothing, right? And they made them look stupid on Saturday almost in that third period. So that is the one thing that he's going to be looking to add this offseason. He's looking to add a little bit more speed to this lineup, and it really creates some chances off the rush. And it might come from some of the rookies, don't forget.
For sure. And that's the thing. In a perfect world, I mean, from even just a salary cap standpoint, if you're getting new additions to your team, especially rookies that are making obviously less than $1 million because they're on the ELC and they're contributing the way that you want them to, that opens the door for other possibilities. That opens the door for different things. It's like when an NFL team wants to make sure that they can be in a competing window while their starting quarterback is on a rookie contract. Yes. Because then it opens the door for you to go out and explore how to better the team as a whole, whether it's on the defensive side or the offensive side. The same goes here if you're Craig Conroy. Now, should the expectation be that you're going to add 3 or 4 of your young guys from your system into the line next year and they're going to immediately be amazing? I don't think that should be the expectation. But you definitely want to go into training camp and you want to go through training camp and hopefully see maybe 1 or 2 guys that stand out that say, you know what, they deserve an opportunity here to get into the lineup on opening day and contribute to this team right away. And you're hopeful that some of these young guys in that game against LA, granted, considering that the Kings didn't have a whole lot of guys playing in that game, you can still feel good about it. And the fact that a bunch of them are going to go down and play with the Wranglers in this playoff run, who knows how far they go? Because they might go on a long run that might be huge in terms of them just, developing and learning how to play in these high pressure games. So that's the way I look at it.
Totally. The problem now is, we mentioned it last week about making these kind of bold moves because you do have guys still locked down on contract, right? And we'll get into Rasmus Andersson for sure. That's going to be one of the big conversations here. You wonder about the contracts that are right now in place for this team, right? And you're looking to add, but what are you looking to sacrifice? And you don't want to bring down that morale. I just saw this morning, like Dylan Larkin said at the deadline, team morale was so down after the deadline because we were still in it and they didn't add at the deadline, right?
Right.
It's like, don't tell me morale is not big in this league. It makes a difference because it made a difference for Detroit, right? Yeah. Made a huge difference. So, okay. So what I'm going to do is I just want to play a quick 1-minute clip here from Craig Conroy here. For those of you listening as well, can't show the video, so I'll play the audio. This is Craig Conroy talking about, quote unquote, sacrificing a top 5 pick. Going for those fans kind of thinking about that. So let me get the clip here for you guys. Let's take a listen here. It's 1 minute and we'll chat after.
Yeah, we all want top 5 picks. I mean, honestly, but to sacrifice a whole team for a top 5 pick, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, like I've always said, you can't tell someone to lose. It's okay to lose, now win. So as long as these guys never believe in the thought of, it's okay to lose, we're going to win every night. We want to win. We want to win. And that's got to be the message because you can't send mixed messages to them. Well, we want a top 5 pick. We all would love a top 5 pick, but you know what? We're going to make a good pick with where we have our picks. That's what we've always said. I'm on our scouts that, hey, we might be, in that 16 to 32, but we got to make a good pick at those spots. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. And then each one after that, You know, Wolfie was a 7th-round pick. You saw what he did this year. Pretty special. So, you know, every pick, we only have a few of them. We want to make every pick count for sure.
There you go.
Yeah, we all want top five.
Instant thoughts on that.
I mean, I agree with everything that he said, right? And we've talked about it ad nauseum throughout the year, where as frustrating as it can be for certain people who wanted to see this Flames team completely bottom out and quote unquote compete for a top 5 pick. The reality is that this team, in my opinion, was never going to be bad enough to be in that position. And then they ended up taking it several steps further than that. And as Craig Conroy said, you're not just going to give up on your team to try to get a top 5 pick. And Craig Conroy's message, I think, was pretty clear to the locker room that said, well, yes, I didn't, add at the deadline. The reality is that I believe that we already have a team that can get to the playoffs, and I trust in you guys to get it done. And I think he also just wanted to see where things went. And I don't think he was going to be upset either way, because I think that there was already progress being made. Some of these games you look back on the year and you say, wow, they really, stepped up. They really did a lot of good things. We mention it. You end up sweeping the season series against the LA Kings, who are going to be ready for a first round matchup against the Edmonton Oilers in the first round of the playoffs. They did, other than Vegas, they really did a good job of competing against those playoff teams. And they proved that they could have very well been in the playoffs if things had gone their way.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest thing that stands out, Kyle, without question, is exactly the way that everybody needs to look at it. At the end of the day, it's not about where you're selecting. It's about who you select and how you develop them. And that's a big thing. Because there are guys all over the league that are doing super well that were not top picks. Yep. Dustin Wolf, right there is the prime example. Had an unbelievable season this year. Was not even a top goaltender selected in his draft. Mm-hmm. And it's about making the right choices when you have the opportunity to do so. And for all we know, the Flames could be picking at 15th or 14th, whatever the case may be, and they end up drafting a stud, and we don't even realize it at that time. We don't know. So I liked all of his comments there.
I did too. I think the whole, we're not sacrificing a whole team for a top 5 pick. It's understandable, right?
Sure.
We've kind of seen it already. Okay, I'm not denying the talents here of a Connor Bedard or a Macklin Celebrini, but you're, as a fan base, the reason why you put so much pressure on those guys is because you want them to succeed right away. They're our savior. They're going to save us from the depths of hell almost, right? And that's just not the way to look at it, right? And his message there too is that we want to win. We don't want, if it happens, then it happens, right? But that's not the message we want to send to our guys. We want to friggin' win, and we can do it the right way, and we can develop in the draft. And there's certainly been, we can look back on so many drafts of guys who are, at the top of the league now. You look at, again, I'll take Nikita Kucherov just as a prime example here, right? He's pretty much the front runner there for the Tampa Bay Lightning, maybe outside of Hedman or whatever. But you look at so many guys in the league who want to contribute to this team, and it's they're not even taken top 5 overall. So it's something you don't want to aim for. And if you do want to aim for that, it's kind of loser mentality a little bit. So I wanted to also bring up that was Craig Conroy. We'll talk more about we kind of did talk about offseason plans, but here was Rasmus Andersson on the debate the fan base and media is having around his future with the team. If I can play it. Oh my God. Okay, there we go. Okay, here we go. Go.
Sorry, it's really quiet today. Have you, understanding that everything you just said about trying to think about it, how challenging has it been for you that we're 6 months into the fan base and the city debating, should they extend them, should they trim that? That's a constant conversation. How difficult has it been to be the center of that?
I mean, I'm trying not to be in the center of it, honestly, but that's the way it works. And, the sad part about it is I've always felt really, really appreciated by our fans. And then, you get a couple of young guys, and I get it. They're righties. They want to make room for the young guys. You've seen it all the other years, but I mean, I think the sad part about it is just how quickly it turned without me really doing nothing, honestly. And the fans that used to hold your back tight, that turn the coat on you, and so that's the sad part. But
Yeah.
do I care about their opinion? Not really, honestly. I want to be loved by the fans, and I hope I am by the 90%. And I've loved every second of it, and I hope, as I said, we're gonna have a long, healthy relationship for many years to come. But as I said, you just got to sit down and see what happens.
There you go. What do you make of that?
I definitely understand what he's saying.
I'll tell you what I make of it if you want.
You can go first. I'll bounce off of what you say.
It's a shame on the fans, really, at the end of the day. Like, it is truly a shame, right? Because, but also too, it's not, you're right. Like, none of this is Rasmus's fault. He's just out there playing. It's just the narrative out there that, oh, we've got these young guys coming in. Oh, Rasmus had a bad, he had a bad run down the stretch, which, by the way, he broke his fibula with 12 games left in the season and still played on it. So my perspective on him has really changed within the last few months, right? And honestly, it's a real shame because he almost sounds not depressed, but just kind of like, oh, these are what the fans think of me now after all this time, and he kind of came out early in that exit interview going, yeah, I broke my fibula with 12 games to go. And now fans backtrack and went, oh, so that's why you sucked with 12 games to go. Right? Like, yeah. I do feel bad for him. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
Do I think it affects a lot going into the offseason, whether or not they try to extend him or trade him, which is the biggest question mark? No, I don't think it does at all. Right? And Conroy knows that too, right? It's just, you wonder if that sounds like a man who feels like two things. He feels maybe defeated a little bit, or that his time could be up, right? And the understanding of that, and the realization that you see all these young guys play on Thursday, Anderson not even being in the lineup on Thursday, and now you wonder if that translates into the offseason and the conversations might change going into it. I feel bad for him, don't get me wrong. And I feel bad for some of that, he talks about like that 10% of fans that, want to be on Team Tank or whatever. And he talks about like them not, oh, we shouldn't be this, blah, blah, blah. I do feel bad for him because it's nothing that he's done wrong. He's given everything to this city. Christ, he broke his friggin' fibula 12 games ago, right? And he fought through it. So again, it doesn't change the outlook, right? But it just makes me appreciate him a lot more.
I think one of the things for a lot of us to keep in mind is that, as always, we never know completely what goes on behind closed doors, right? We're not reporters. We're not members of the team. We're not there on a day-to-day basis. And it's easy for us as fans and however you want to describe yourself to immediately go off on someone when they're not playing to the level that you expect them to play or that you want them to play.
Right.
And then it always sucks when you find out at the end of the season on cleanup day, when guys reveal, when they're allowed to reveal what exactly they were dealing with. And so when you hear that, obviously he's going to get a lot of sympathy. I sympathize with that completely. And it is unfortunate. And it sucks that he got hurt and broke his fibula and had to grind that out, especially while trying to get into the playoffs.
The amount of comments from people that I saw afterwards, right, when he broke out there, people were like, oh.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck you. And we've said it too. We're like, you don't know what's happening behind closed doors. That's the thing we always talk about, right? And they're all backtracking kind of like, oh, right.
And that's the thing. But going to what Anderson was saying, I think there's a part of him that does feel hurt by the way he's been treated.
Mhm.
especially how much he's given to this organization in his time. I think he also just understands the reality of the business, right? And looking at where the Flames may
No
want to
one's
go,
safe.
may want to go moving forward, where
Sure.
there's guys coming up that are playing in his position and same handedness, right? And he's like kind of reading the, understanding what the reality could be. I don't think Anderson wants to be moved. I don't think that's his priority. But I think he also understands that he doesn't have a whole lot of control and or potentially say in this matter, right? If the Flames get an offer in the off season that really benefits them for Anderson, Craig Conroy, in my opinion, would be dumb not to do it.
That's
Especially,
that's a
especially
huge
when you look
question.
at the deals that he has made for some of the other guys that were in that locker room. Like, look at the Markstrom deal. I think it's worked out very well for Calgary in the
Yep.
sense of you got that first round pick that's going to probably end up being in the late teens, early 20s.
If the Devils fall out here in the first
If the
round, it's gonna
Devils
be
fall out of the
18
first round,
18
yes.
is what it'll be. Yeah.
And you have Kevin Ball, who I think had a really strong first year in Calgary. And I think
Who is
that's
looking to extend? Yes.
right, exactly. And even say what you want about the disappointment that he had this year, even the Tyler Toffoli trade when you acquired Sharon Govich, a young, shot first kind of guy that, certainly needs to improve on what was a tough year. But again, I think it worked out in that way. So like the bottom line is that like that's the business of this. You get something that's going to be beneficial to your team, 9 times out of 10, you're going to end up making that deal.
Yeah.
But I think for Rasmus Anderson, like I said, I agree with you in that I sympathize with him, and I do think it's shameful on a lot of the fans. But I will also say that this is the reality of sports, right? It's always the reality
Mhm.
that guys are going to get, like these athletes are going to get crapped on, especially when these fans don't know very much about what's going on. And then you find out in the aftermath, oh, this guy broke his foot. This guy did that. We talk about it every year, Kyle, right? At the end of the Stanley Cup finals, when the list of injuries come out and you like broken spleen,
Everything.
concussion.
Everything. Yeah.
Like,
And people crap on them after, and then
oh,
they
of
see the
course.
list, right?
Right.
And then they see
And
the
then you
injury
feel
list come
bad
out.
afterwards. You're like, oh, I feel bad. I feel bad, this, that, and the other thing. But again, going
Yeah.
back to what I was saying originally, you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. And then you find out, and then you're like, damn, wow.
It's and this a little bit here. It's tough because you talk about a lot of people like Conroy coming in and doing a clean sweep, right? Getting
Right.
rid of Markstrom, whatever the list goes on, right? We've talked about it before, Lindholm and all that,
Sure.
right? And now you feel like you're at a point after this season where it's like, great, we have a bunch of guys. It's been a great locker room. You want guys to be here, yet we're having this conversation again going to the off season of, oh well, now we got to get rid of Anderson, right?
Right.
Like we've talked about this at full length. When does it end?
When does it end?
When
Yeah.
does this end? When does this
Right.
stop? But maybe the reality is that it just doesn't, right?
Mhm.
You've got to keep looking out for the future because, you really have a short window of young guys that especially within the circumstances of where they're at right now, right?
Mhm.
You want to make sure you try and capitalize it on the most. And that's what they're trying to do in order to go into next season is to add some speed and what Conroy kind of talked about there at the end of his press box. So
For sure.
I feel bad for him. I really
Right.
do. And I really feel like that he wants to stay. I
Yeah.
just don't know if Conroy's going to have to make a bold decision here. And I feel like this is going to be one of them. I don't think people understand the magnitude of this move coming up.
Right.
Either way,
I don't.
whichever way they go,
Yeah.
it's a ginormous decision to make this offseason because it's going to dictate the direction of this team quite a lot, right? And, okay, he broke his fibula 12 games ago. Does he come out? I mean, I would assume with all the, with him resting up now for a full offseason here, like he's going to be fine coming out here. But you wonder if that hinders it a little bit going into next year. I hope not, right? It's a tough conversation, man. It really is. It's going to be very fascinating to see what Conroy does this offseason with Anderson.
I don't know if that injury is going to hinder things going into the offseason. I don't think it will because by the time that teams start talking to Calgary about making a move for Anderson,
Mhm.
it will already have been a couple months,
Right,
right? It will
right.
be by that point you'll have a clear understanding. And I don't think Conroy is going to deny teams of that information about the severity of that injury and how long it's going to take. I fully expect Anderson, whether he's in Calgary or not next year, will be available for training camp next season. I don't think that there would have to be something, either the severity of it or something goes wrong in his rehab that delays that. But I think bottom line, as you said, we have to wait and see. There's no clear idea as to where this is going to go, but it's going to be something talked about a lot over the coming months.
Close
And
to
we'll
July
see.
1st, man. July 1st
July 1st.
feels like deadline day 2.0 almost.
Sure.
Right?
100%.
Absolutely. All right, good talk. Let's so that's pretty much it for the Flames regular season. Lockers are now cleaned out. Exit interviews have come and gone here. And again, we probably won't hear much of this team news-wise closer to the draft in terms of kind of what they'll do. And it's also important to watch in the next 2 weeks here in the playoffs, because you have to see what New Jersey's going to do, and you have to see what Florida's going to do in the first round, because you want to see where those first-round picks end up. And it's also worth noting, too, you want to see where the Montreal Canadiens end up. So a great situation would be if Montreal, for some reason, wins their series and Florida and New Jersey lose. So we can only hope, right?
Right.
Exactly. Okay, let's get to an ad break. We'll come back on the other side, and I think we'll just talk about kind of what happened so far this past weekend with playoffs opening up.
Sure.
And then we'll call it a day after that. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's do it. If you're ready to win some real cash during the basketball and NHL playoffs, check out Pick 6 from DraftKings. When it comes to basketball payouts, DraftKings Pick 6 posterizes the competition, including Prize Picks. Hit all your picks and score higher minimum payouts on Pick 6, plus even more cash if you outscore the competition. Pick 6 is available in most states, including Missouri, California, Texas, Georgia, and more. New players get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly on just a $5 entry. You can download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only on with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
All right, we're back. For those of you not listening, fun little comment that we got here as City Life Project just wanted to say.
I'll say this
Edmonton.
again. Love that.
Oh man,
Love that.
so that series. I think that series starts tonight, if I'm not mistaken.
It does start
correct?
tonight.
Starts tonight.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, let's spend 10-20 minutes here. We'll talk about what's happened this past weekend in the playoffs now. Any particular series you want to start out with, Neil? Anyone that comes to mind?
Not really. I mean, as I mentioned before we jumped on, granted, we're only 2 days in. This is only day 3 of the playoffs, but so far kind of a disappointment in terms of,
it's
competitive.
Hi, Isha.
Good to see Isha. I know he was live for the Minnesota Vegas
Golden Knights game last night. Yeah, good game, actually. Good game.
Which actually has so far been the only good game, and it sucks because again, 10 p.m. start time Eastern.
Oh yeah, I was not. I was not up for that.
No,
Sorry.
I was not staying up for that.
Oh, and then it gets better. 11 o'clock Eastern on what is that? Wednesday or Tuesday? Or
Yeah.
something like that. And I'm like,
Someone's
well,
an
no,
idiot.
I'm not
Someone's a
watching that.
genius. This is what happens when you're trying to compete with the NBA, right? You're just having you always are second class to the NBA. But let's start with how about we just start with the first series that started? Let's start with Dallas and Colorado.
Well, first one was actually Winnipeg and St. Louis, but sure.
I don't.
Sure, that's fine. That's fine. I got
Sure,
it.
let's start with that. You start something.
Okay. How about let's just quickly go over Jets Blues. That was the first one that
Fine.
happened. The Blues really, I feel, blew that there in the third
did
period.
blow it.
They kind of controlled, like, even being down 2-1 after the first period, like, you come out flying there in the second period, and now you've got Winnipeg on their heels. All of a
Sure.
sudden they come in Saturday, boom, see you later. Like Kyle Connor, minute 35 left, basically shuts the door on the
Yeah.
Blues. By no means is that series over. After
No,
watching that
get it
game,
started.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Blues come back here and win game 2 on was it tonight? Do they play tonight? Winnipeg tonight? Tomorrow?
The schedule's
Tonight?
so messed up. I couldn't
Whatever.
tell you.
Anyway, game 2. I believe the Blues will find a way to win game 2.
Yeah.
I just think they've been too good to end the year where, they go back
Yeah.
to St. Louis down 2-0. I just refuse to believe it. I think they find a
Yeah.
way to win game 2.
Game 2 is tonight, 7:30 on ESPN2 for those watching in
Okay.
in America.
And then yes, we'll talk about we were live for Dallas and Colorado game 1 on Saturday. And I
Mhm.
think the thing that really stood out to me was I said it early on, like the speed by Colorado just completely crushed Dallas in that third period where there was a
Mhm.
little bit of hope there. You're down 2-1, and then I think it was Charlie Coyle who got that third goal, if I'm not mistaken.
He did. Yeah, he ended. And
Yeah.
it's funny because we were talking to Bailey, and I asked Bailey who her X factor was going into the series, and she said it was Charlie Coyle, who then 10 minutes later ended up scoring anyway.
Yeah. And sorry, Isha just
Yeah,
saying that
go ahead.
Snuggerland's also looked really good for St. Louis, and I totally agree with that too.
Yeah, and I think in the game in game 1 between Dallas, excuse me, and Colorado, I think the story of that game was Mackenzie Blackwood because
Oh,
the Avs were overwhelmed in that first period. It really looked like the Stars were ready for the kill, but Blackwood in his first career playoff game looked great. He looked sharp. He was making
Really
he was
good.
making big time saves. It was really good, and he kind of weathered that storm and allowed the Avs to settle in. I was worried that when the Avs had an early 5-on-3, didn't score on it, I was worried that was going to come back to bite them. I think that's one thing you're going to have to look for moving forward in this series, special teams and how big of it plays in this series. Overall, if you're Dallas, you're definitely worried because you do not want to go to Colorado down.
especially if Landeskog comes back for game 3, you're not winning game 3.
Or game 2.
No way. I can't. I don't think now that Colorado's won game 1, I don't think there's a rush for Landeskog to come back yet.
Because that team is good with, not a disrespect to Landeskog, obviously, but like that team is
Sure.
good without him in the lineup.
Well, yeah, I mean that's how they got.
But you get him back in the lineup, that completely changes everything, doesn't it?
Especially if they put him on that third line, which what Bailey was saying, right? Like that's the thing. There's no real rush to bring
have
him
to win
back
tonight.
in. And for Dallas, if there's any game 2 teams that after the weekend, what we saw, if there's any teams that need to win game 2, it's Dallas.
And I think we saw it, right? I think we saw what was fairly obvious before the series started. Not having Miro Heiskanen, not having Jason Robertson.
It's
playing a factor right away.
Huge factor.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the Avs are taking advantage of it.
So,
and I will say the first goal of that game, right? By who was it? I'm trying to remember that stupid.
Lehkonen.
Lehkonen, like kicking it,
almost bicycle kicked it in. Basically,
he literally was like Wayne Rooney there
on accident,
bicycle kick, and you can't I can't get on Ottinger for that.
I can't either.
It's I don't think Ottinger played that bad of a game. I
don't blame him really.
The 5th goal was definitely you probably should have had that, but yeah, I mean it's tough. If you're Dallas, you got a lot of things to change. Right. You have to be better, and you have to solve Blackwood because if you don't, you're out in 5 games. At the and I'm being serious. You can't. This is why people love Colorado. Just long term, they proved it.
And maybe they needed a guy like Stankoven coming back too, right? Yeah. So okay, I mean, we got. We'll have game 2 for you live tonight on THPN channel. So make sure to come check us out. It'll be myself, Bailey, and if Neil is awake.
Depends on how I feel.
Depends on Neil.
Not that I don't want to jump on. It just
I got it.
Especially because I'm doing a game tomorrow.
I am as well. will be
Yes,
on
you
tomorrow
are.
night as well. There's a game every single night live stream on THPN
Shout
all the
out,
way till
shout out Grant,
Saturday.
by the way. Great job yesterday, despite it being a blow. I could tell Grant in like the third period was like,
He was like, I think this is
the
over.
worst thing you could do is do a live watch along of a game that ends up being completely one sided. And you're like, and Kyle and I know this from 2 years ago. He will be there, let's be honest. All right.
He might be.
Might be, yeah. Maybe not the whole
Um,
game. Maybe like
Well, you did do a live watch along yesterday.
Mhm.
Devils and Hurricanes, very
Yes.
entertaining. Maybe is the word to use. Maybe isn't the word to use.
I don't know if I'd say that.
How, being the lovely Devils fan that you are, how was it yesterday after, like, just because you see all the injuries start piling up again, and now you're like,
Yeah.
crap, like, you know,
Yeah.
is that it? Do you think after one game, or is there hope?
I'd say yes and no to that question because look, the Devils were already banged up going into it, right?
Sorry. Also too, like, to add on to Dallas winning game 2, I think it's a foregone conclusion that the Devils need to win game 2.
Yeah, and like the difference is though is that Dallas lost game 1 at home, right? That's the difference in that you're already in that situation, so not ideal. But going back to what I was saying, look, the Devils were already depleted. You didn't have Jack Hughes, you didn't have Siegenthaler. Already a tough thing to deal with.
Right.
Then you lose Brendan Dillon, who granted was pretty bad before he got hurt. Like it wasn't like he was really like being significant, but like losing him anyway sucks. And then having one shift where not one but 2 different guys get hurt in the same 30 seconds, it was just it was like a double-edged sword. And it was, Luke getting hurt and then Markstrom accidentally slashing Cody Glass right in the freaking leg.
I don't know who made the comment, but what would have happened if Svechnikov got that? Like if it connected with
gotten hurt.
Svechnikov, right?
I think he would have gotten hurt. So in kind of the funniest way possible, that was the best case scenario if you're Carolina, right? That he completely missed. I don't even know what made Markstrom do that. Trying to watch the replay, I didn't see anything.
What are you trying to get out of that?
Maybe it was that because like Svechnikov semi-pushed, and I say semi like not with intent. Yeah, he definitely did. He definitely did channels his inner Markstrom, Hextall there.
Hextall, yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. And the Devils were, I just did an episode earlier this morning covering game 1. The Devils were completely overwhelmed. There's no question. When you're outshot at 1 point 38-12, you're getting overwhelmed. That second period was the game. They were only down 1-0 going into that second period, and things just continued to spiral out of control. You did get a goal back, which was great. At least you didn't get shut out, but it was not a good effort at all. And I know that people are saying that this series is already done. I will say that what you saw yesterday from the Devils has been kind of a continuation of how things have been for the better part of the last 4.5 months of being inconsistent. But if they continue to be inconsistent, that means that they'll probably have a much better performance in game 2. Because again, it'll be up and down the rest of the way. At least I hope. I think there still is hope because, as I said, what happens if the Devils win game 2? What is the feeling with both teams at that point? Especially knowing that the series goes back to New Jersey.
Depends how they win it.
It depends how they win it. But I think if they still win, like, let's say 2-1 in overtime, right? I still think that's a big win in itself because you stole the home ice advantage despite everything.
Right.
But it could also be damaging for Carolina if, let's say, they get blown out 5-1 in game 2.
That would send would send a bigger message in game 2 rather than if they lose a very, very close game in game 2. Sure. I don't think Canes fans are worried. Yeah. If they get, for some ungodly reason, if they get blown out in game 2, then we're having a different conversation.
And the goaltending question then comes up again for Carolina. It's like, okay, so now who do you start in game 3? Do you go back to Freddie Anderson or do you go to Peter Kochetkov? But I want to give the Canes a lot of credit. They played their system so well to a T yesterday. Logan Stankoven, first playoff game as a Hurricane, was phenomenal. And Dallas could have definitely used Stankoven in game 1 of their series for sure.
That's okay. They have Rantanen.
Right. They have Rantanen. And we'll see how Rantanen goes the rest of the way in that series. But bottom line for both teams in that game 1 between New Jersey and Carolina, you don't really have to change much. There's nothing really you can do any better than what you did for New Jersey. Oh, there's so much, right? Markstrom was the only reason that game didn't get super out of hand. He was great, and it's just
to be.
And it's just unfortunate that the team couldn't support him. But that's kind of been the story throughout the year. So we'll see. I'm taking it one game at a time. And I said before, for the Devils, for as bad as they were, the only thing they could do is go up from here. I think anything, and that's the way that I look at it.
Yeah, for sure. You should just saying one more thing here as well. Did you know that Matt Rempe trains Muay Thai at Calgary's top gym with that national one-arm Muay Thai champ? That's crazy. I didn't know that. Well, I don't know if I'd really.
You should train with Wayne Gretzky and learn how to skate.
Calgary's becoming that little fight hub. I don't know if I want Rempe though. Around.
Yes, you do.
I don't think I do. Last
Even Lomberg on a fourth line would be absolute cinema.
I'm okay without it. Last two games here. Sens lose 6-2 yesterday. The Leafs take game one there. What do you make from that one?
The Sens were the better team for about half that game. It just didn't go their way, at least at first. But it definitely snowballed. And
I thought the Leafs were the better team in the first period overall.
They got outshot pretty badly, though.
Yes, but I felt like they controlled the pace of play. And, again, I think it's you talk about
Larson score a goal in the playoffs was definitely not on my bingo card.
But also, too, like you talk about opportunities in the playoffs, like Mitch Marner scores on a breakaway, Brady Tkachuk doesn't. And Brady Tkachuk not scoring on that breakaway yesterday really turned the tide of that game, right? Because all of a sudden you're feeling down, Leafs go up, and then you feel like it's too far out of reach.
Yeah, and we'll see how things go moving forward in that series. But if goaltending is going to be as bad as it was, and Linus Ullmark was bad in game one, that series is going to be a sweep. I'm being very honest, because that was very bad. But again, similar to what I said with the Devils, for the Senators, all you can do is go up from here, right? For as bad as you were, there's things you could do.
Absolutely. Enjoy lunch break. The last little bit of your lunch break there, Isha. Good stuff. All right. And then last one here, we'll take a look at Golden Knights. 4-2 win last night over the Wild. Take the game one in that one there. Expected, maybe, is the right word to use there?
Yeah, expected. Minnesota doesn't get blown out very often, so it didn't surprise me that they were in that game. I think Vegas took them a little bit for granted early on in that game.
Right.
They got the first goal. You're feeling all high and mighty, and then you give it right back. And I think Minnesota put up a decent fight. But at the end of the day, they got overwhelmed in that third period. I mean, giving up that goal to, Nick Howden, and made it 3-1. That was the gut punch. I was like, because they were still in it at that point. And I give Gustafsson credit. He started the game off shaky, but he locked it down moving forward. And if you could get a better performance through 60 from him, you give yourselves a chance to win game two. Again, other than Dallas losing at home, every team that lost game one was on the road. So again, as the old saying goes, Kyle, right? You're not in trouble in a series until you lose a game at home. So for a lot of these teams, for as either bad or whatever you want to say they played in game number one, they can still take game two, and all of a sudden the mindset and the feeling around those teams changes.
Going back home.
Going back, exactly.
For a lot of those teams, totally.
Yeah. I'm just excited to see that Minnesota crowd for a playoff game, because they always bring it, regardless of where they are, and that's going to be fun.
If you're down 3-0, just as an example here in that series.
I know what you're going to ask me. The answer is yes. Put him in. Put him in for game three. Why not?
For 4.
What do you have to lose? You get knocked out anyway. At least Fleury plays one more playoff game in his career.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Maybe he gets extra motivation because it's against the Golden Knights, who he really hates now.
And if they win that might be the win. That's all they need.
They come back from down 3-0 because Fleury puts on an absolute freaking clinic.
You got her. Cool. All right. I think that's pretty much it for today.
Right.
We'll kind of wrap it up there.
4 games today.
4 games. What are the 4? We're doing the one live tonight at 9:30.
We have Montreal, Washington, first game.
Game 1, yeah.
Second game is Winnipeg, St. Louis.
Game 2, yep.
Third game is Colorado, Dallas, game 2.
Yep.
And then the last one is, I am blanking.
Edmonton and Los Angeles start their series tonight.
I am actually going to stay up for that one. Because
I might too. I might. Well, I mean, we're going to see the end of it.
I have been waiting for this entire time because it's time for LA.
I was gonna say, you can still hang out. If you're going to stay up for that, then you can hang out and throw that game on for fun.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
to go live.
Convincing you more and more now.
I just want to sit there. I would just like to sit there and watch.
And you will.
But,
And you
yeah.
will. Absolutely.
It
So
should
yeah,
be fun.
make sure to check us out. We're back in action tonight, guys. 9:30 Eastern. We got game 2 for you covered
9:30
between
Eastern.
I know
Cool.
9:30 Eastern. Dallas and Colorado game 2. We'll have you covered for that one. Tomorrow night we're gonna have game 2 for you for Devils Hurricanes. We're gonna have Grant doing game 2 for the Canadians and Capitals on April 23rd, so on Wednesday. I'm going to force Dylan to do one on Thursday if he feels like it on Thursday. And then
Let me
just
guess,
Friday.
He told you that he felt like it, and now he's like having second thoughts. And
Well,
maybe-
today's technically a day off, but we're
It's
still doing some
technically a
stuff.
day
I'm
off.
still doing some stuff at least. But and then Friday we got game 3 Hurricanes Devils, and we'll have Grant for game 4 between the Sens and the Leafs. That's what the schedule looks like. And we'll hope you
Also-
guys can check us out.
Also, to kind of bring it back to Calgary a little bit, Wranglers game 1 against the Coachella Firebirds will be
Thank you.
tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern. Is it one of those things where like all 3 games are on the road? Is that how that works? How
Yeah,
does this work?
I
Because
think.
I have the whole schedule up. It's Tuesday, tomorrow, April 22nd at 8 p.m. Saturday is game 2. I'm
Let
not
me-
sure.
Yeah, the
And
play.
then-
How do the? I don't even know how the. I think it's a different format in the AHL playoffs.
Okay.
Such a different format.
Yeah, and then it's game the second game or the second game is April 26th, Saturday at 7, and then this upcoming Sunday, game 3, April 27th, 6 p.m. I believe it's a best of 3.
You might be right.
I think
You
I'm right.
might
about
be
that.
right. Yeah.
So
Anyway,
take on the
we'll.
Coachella Firebirds. That's going to be a good matchup.
It will be a very good
They
match.
went
I'm just
to,
trying to.
they went to the finals last year. They went to the
I thought they
finals.
were going to win it last year.
Wow,
Absolutely.
Hershey, you know.
Hershey. Yeah. So the Colorado Eagles have that Pacific Division wrapped up. You got the Calgary Wranglers and the Coachella Valley. Yeah.
So
Cool. All right.
another
Good
chance
stuff.
to see some of the young guys if you are interested.
We hope you are. All right. That's going to wrap it up. I'm taking a nap this afternoon before tonight. Gonna need
Yeah.
it. Gonna need it.
Might-
All right.
it is kind of like one of those days, right?
It's definitely one of those days.
So,
All right. We will see you guys tonight if you want to come check us out on the THPN channel at 9:30. Other than that, we'll talk to you all again next Monday. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you then. Later.
later, guys.